Welcome to the Biz and Tech Podcast. My name is Blake Dowling. I'm the CEO of Aegis Biz Tech in Tallahassee, Florida. We are joined today, our production team, Charlie Bravo Pictures, Level Up Digital Media, and we've got a very special guest for you. First, cybersecurity. Tax season is now over, but that doesn't mean hackers are not after all of your information. Texts, emails, even phone calls. Caller ID can be spoofed. Be extra conscious about what you're communicating and who you're communicating with. Don't share financial information via email. Don't share your credentials with anyone calling. Even if it's the IRS doesn't call you. You have to call them. So be safe out there, folks. The threat landscape is brutal. On to more exciting things. Our guest today is Carter Jacobs, the owner of Rearview Vintage and Vinyl. I received a record player for Christmas last year. Thank you, Jeannie. Now I have a very expensive hobby, but it's awesome. After ordering a couple of records via mail, I discovered the Hometown Record Store here in Tallahassee. Carter's Place is right here in Midtown. In the theme of our local economy and supporting local business people, this show is all about that, and this episode is all about that. So, Carter, welcome to the show, man.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I love what you do. We'll dive into it in a lot of detail, but tell us about your journey. How did you get started as I assume fandom came first of vinyl as a platform and then came the store? Did you have an aha moment? I'm going to open a record store. How did it all come to play, man?
So pretty much I started out in high school. My first record, my aunt got me for Christmas. And from there, I was just like, you know what? I think I'm going to start collecting records. And just kind of grew from there. I used to go garage sailing for records. And that's how I started out pretty much, where I would just get a lot of my inventory from there. And when you buy 400 records at a time, 500 records at a time, or even 10, you pull what you want for yourself. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you just kind of can clear some stuff out. So I would start doing pop-ups essentially around town at different vintage markets and things like that. And that allowed me to make some more money, start buying more records, and then just kind of continue to snowball to where now I got 4,000 records in storage. I have my personal collection, maybe 1,000, 2,000. What do I do with that extra? Yeah,
that's a big range, yeah. 1,000 or 2,000.
I don't know, yeah. I never kept a great count.
Right.
But what do you do with the extra records that you have in storage? And it just kind of came to be where a spot opened up. Maybe I do something with it. And I started Rearview Vintage Vinyl in 2023 in June. And it's kind of just exploded from there. Now we probably have, I don't know, at least 5,000 records out in the shop. And then another 10,000 in storage. That's maybe the stuff you don't want to see. But we kind of put that stuff out for like sale days, things like that, and just kind of save up a lot of our inventory and just kind of keep it going.
Awesome. So the question I get asked when I'm talking about vinyl with anyone is, well, why vinyl? You can just stream it on Spotify. And, being my age, we're obviously different generationally. I grew up with cassettes and then CDs and then streaming. I missed the vinyl era, so I'm kind of going back to it with a few exceptions. I think I had a couple of records as a kid. But what do you tell people when you describe the vinyl experience? Why vinyl?
I usually say you should collect vinyl records because there is a physical aspect to it, of course. So when you stream music, you don't own any of that music. I mean, you may have your iPod or whatever, and you can buy iTunes, which essentially that even has phased out at this point, unless you're buying digital unless you're buying like an MP3 on Bandcamp or whatever app. But most people are not, and they're streaming from Spotify, Apple Music, whatever. And you don't own any of that. So if any of your favorite songs or artists decide, hey, I'm not on streaming anymore, like Joni Mitchell, Neil Young, previously they weren't on Spotify. They weren't on streaming. So you have tons of songs from them that you just can't listen to. But their records are prevalent. You can go into my store and get them for $10, $15, $20, which, yeah, you're going to pay about $10 to $15 for a streaming service per month. But if you really want to have that music and be able to listen to it whenever you want, then you got to have a record for it. You got to have a physical version of it. You can do that via cassette, CD. I mean, there's multiple different ways to do it. And I just think it's a better option than streaming, because also with new records, the money goes straight to the artist.
Right.
So you're not, many artists from streaming don't really get most of the money from that. I mean, you have to have millions and millions of streams, and even then, it's not a ton. You're mostly making money from touring, merch sales, things like that. So when you buy a record, you're also supporting the artist.
Well said, man. I think for me, part of the journey of an actual album, when you hear an artist in an interview say, well, this album, we wrote from start to finish and we put the songs into a certain order. And if you didn't live through that era, like say Dire Straits, for example, I discovered Dire Straits in college via Alchemy. I mean, yeah, I lived through the 80s when Money for Nothing and Brothers in Arms was huge, but it was too huge. It was like, wow, this band is too big. But on Alchemy, I started hearing these songs like Once Upon a Time in the West, and you heard the live version and what the band and Mark Knopfler's picking style is like. So different experience. So to go back and discover their work, Sultans of Swing, and the song order and the song release, like what singles were popular and when, to know those albums. I have all their albums now, and I love them. They're some of my go-tos, so that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. So walk us through Record Store Day. Artists put out special releases for Record Store Day, and I'm sure that's huge for your business. What type of response do you see from the market here in Florida, and what's a Record Store Day like?
So Record Store Day really depends. So there's a Record Store Day Black Friday, and then there's the main Record Store Day, which usually happens in April. And the Black Friday Record Store Day will usually be not as large as a list. So it'll be smaller releases, but still get people in the shop. The main Record Store Day in April, it's hundreds of records on that list. And we kind of just go through. We ask our customers, hey, what are you looking for? What do you want to see when you come into the shop? And this year it was on April 12th. So what do you want to see when you come in on April 12th? And they bring in lists. They message us on Instagram. And we compile that. We order what we can. And you're not always guaranteed to get everything that you ask for. And we ordered a bunch of the big releases this year were Taylor Swift and Gracie Abrams, and we ordered a bunch of those, and we ended up with 3 Gracie Abrams and 4 Taylor Swift, and that just those were the big releases, and that's where we had people lining up at like 3 a.m. for those. So people wait outside, they wait. We open at 9 a.m.
3 a.m.
Yes. We had people sitting in chairs out front. I got there around 5 a.m. because there was some stuff I needed to finish up.
Man, I need that kind of free time in my life.
Yeah. It must. They're dedicated, and they were there for the Taylor Swift and the Gracie Abrams, and they were sitting there, blankets on, and they waited till 9 a.m. and then people file in. We let 10 people in at a time, and we had a line going all the way around our building to the very back to like the grass area if you come to our shop, and you just kind of file in, and you got to get there early to get what you want. We sold out. The first things to go were the Gracie Abrams and the Taylor Swift again. Like, that stuff just does not last.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So when a band comes to town, say in Tallahassee, you ever had any celebrity walk-ins?
Not as much, but we did have Foreigner. The guitarist for Foreigner came through, and then one of the guys who works for the stage that tours with them came through as well. And recently from Word of South, we had Rough and Tumble come by.
Nice.
They introduced their niece to records, so they're like, our first time going to a record store, we want to be with you for that. So she was able to come by and get some records, and we kind of opened the shop specifically for them.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
And speaking of, what kind of ages are you seeing as far as your customers?
So usually our customer base is around, it varies. We have a lot of people who grew up with records, never got out of it, and they're coming in to continue their collection. Or you have people that got out of records around late 80s, early 90s, switched over to CDs, and that's usually around like the 40-ish age, 40 to 50. But we also have a large college student base as well, especially with CDs, which are becoming big again.
Yeah.
We have a huge college crowd that comes in, and we've had lines for like our CDs, and we'll sell like 150 CDs in one day.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So you mentioned your first record. Your aunt gave it to you. What was that first record?
It was Jackson Browne, Running on Empty.
Sweet.
Yeah.
You still have it?
I think so. I'm not a huge Jackson Browne fan.
Is anyone a huge Jackson Browne fan? Sorry.
I get some people that come in. Yeah, it depends, but I'm more like I like his stuff, but it's more so the acoustic side of him. And he has a great bootleg album, live album, called Technicolor Dream. And that album is just him and a guitar pretty much. And he talks in between and is interacting with the audience. And I like that aspect of him because he tells great stories and his lyrics are great. And that's just a cool side to see.
Absolutely. So there's a movie, John Cusack, what's it called? High Fidelity?
Yes.
So he, is compulsive about his organization of his records. In the store, obviously, you go A to Z, but what about at home? Do you have any peculiar aspects to your filing of your systems? You have, by genre?
No, it's all a mess.
Oh, it's not even A to Z? It's just all a mess.
It's all put in there, just on shelves. And I get so much in the shop to where the stuff that comes home with me kind of is on the back burner a little bit. So I won't make my way to what I want to listen to at home right away. And I also have to clean everything I do or everything I own. So that takes time as well. So I clean so much for the shop. I get home and I'm like, man, now I got to clean these records. So that takes time. So it's just kind of mixed in currently, but I'm working on it.
My friend Doug Iverson, he got a turntable about a year or two before me, and so we've kind of built our collections together. We're on Discogs. He was the one that said you should, build your collection online. He says he spends a lot of his time actually cleaning records instead of listening to records. Do you find falling into that trap as a fan?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you're buying used records, so everything that goes in the shop, I ultrasonically clean. So I have a machine that does it, and then I dry everything by hand. I do the same thing at home, except I have what's called a humming guru, and that dries the records as well. So I can just kind of put a record in there one at a time, go do something, come back, and the record's ready to go, essentially.
Nice.
So it
How
takes
often
time.
do you clean a record?
Usually, I mean, whenever I get the stuff in, and I'll clean a couple records a day, usually at home. But at the store, I mean, I think going out this weekend, we'll have like 200, 300 records going out. So I have cleaned all 200, 300 of those this week.
Well, of all the shops I've visited throughout the country, your bagging and your care of the records, it reminds me of my comic book collection when I was a kid, with the bagging process and the boxes. It's brilliant. Bravo.
Yeah, thank you. I try to take those extra steps so the customers don't at home. And it's ready to go whenever you get home and want to listen to it.
Awesome. So in 1988, I was walking around Piccadilly in England, and I walked into a record shop and I bought Appetite for Destruction. About a month after it came out, I just saw them open for Motley Crue on the Girls, Girls, Girls tour. They had replaced Whitesnake, which I was very upset about. Whitesnake was rocking at the time. Still of the Night was top of the charts, and then, Geffen released Appetite for Destruction, and it came out in 1987. It really wasn't huge until 88, 89, when Sweet Child of Mine came out. So it was kind of flying under the radar, and it had a limited edition album cover that the first 100,000 were pressed with this cover that was banned. So I bought that cover in England, and I found it the other day, and I looked it up on Discogs, and it was like a $2,000 price tag. And I told my friend Doug about it, who I referenced earlier, and he's like, "Oh wow, well, what are you going to do with it? You going to frame it? Are you going to display it? How are you going to display it?" I'm like, "Well, I'm listening to it." He's like, "You opened a sealed record? What is wrong with you, man?" So he's in the record snob category. So that's fun because I can antagonize him. But my question with the very long forefront on it is, what's the most expensive record that you've either sold or purchased or come across? Walk us through it.
So the most expensive record I've ever sold is, I just got in a couple months back. This guy named Little Beaver. He was a musician out of South Florida. He was later on Cat Records, big kind of funk musician. But I sold one of his early singles with the Rocketeers from 1963, I want to say. And it's on Sadia out of South Florida. And it's just, usually when you're looking at expensive records, it's private press, small label items that just didn't get widely distributed.
Right.
So I sold that for $650. Yeah, it was very cool. It was the most expensive record I ever sold, and that was a couple months back. Currently, I think the most expensive record I've gotten in is, I just got in Otis Redding's. Otis Redding's First 45, from 1961.
That's cool.
Yeah, Otis Redding and the Pine Toppers.
Nice.
Very cool. It was a small label out of Georgia. It was recorded actually at University of Georgia. So
That's cool.
yeah, it was. They rented out the studio there and recorded it.
Nice. I was listening to an REM podcast the other day talking about their early years. Michael Stipe, the B-52s, they all used to record stuff at UGA. Actually, not just gig around the town and the 40 watt and the stories everybody knows, but the UGA had a huge part of that world. So that's cool. Nice. So as far as the most expensive record you've seen for sale, what are some of the top titles? Like the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, you always see that up there.
Yeah.
What's the most expensive mainstream record you think you've ever seen?
A lot of 90s grunge will be up there because that's when they were phasing out records. So a lot of that stuff exists on CD. So Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, bands like that will usually be on top. But yeah, usually, yeah, it's just a ton of the stuff that just isn't out there. And that 90s stuff isn't out there just because of that time period.
Now that's interesting because I was always told from other record snobs, not just Doug, that around 82, 83, 84 was the cutoff from analog to digital as far as the tape and how a record sounds. So those 90s records are just as top-notch in your mind as those what is that? What was that cutoff? Was it digital to analog to digital?
Yeah, so analog to digital, and it depends. I wouldn't say there's a specific time period. Like you have a lot of early classical, like early 80s classical records that switched over and it was like, oh, here's the digital recording. We mastered this digitally. And that's something where personally, I'm not a snob about that stuff. That's not really, I just think any access to the record is nice. I don't have audiophile stuff. Most equipment as well is not intended for audiophile purposes. So like the average record player, you're not going to hear those differences. The speaker that it's coming out of, you're not going to hear that difference until you get to like multi-$1,000 equipment essentially.
Okay, that's a good point.
So it just kind of depends for the user.
What's your take as a business person and fan on like colored vinyl and releases like that?
That it depends on the artist as well with that stuff. Like a lot of limited edition things, like let's say Taylor Swift, for instance, she'll put out multiple different releases, all in different colors and different covers and this and that. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but I do think that people get caught up with it. And especially with Record Store Day and like those other releases, you'll have like one of the I know we got asked for George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, and it was a Zoetrope picture disc. And there's no difference between the records. It's the same. There's no extra recordings. There's no extra songs, anything like that. It's just a picture disc. So I think people oftentimes get caught up with the limited edition version of this and that. And oftentimes that stuff also adds value. So you're essentially paying for not exactly the color, but just the name that's added to that, the price that's added to that. And I have this and you don't as well. I think that's a part of it where
That's definitely a part of it.
I bought even the Tracy Chapman self-titled just got reissued recently. And it's the 35th anniversary. There's regular black vinyl copies. And then there was a orange and red copy that was independent for independent record stores. So we got those in. I think they retailed $26, $28. Now they're going for $50. And that was a release from last month, sorry. I think just people get caught up with it. And you're spending the money for something that you can get regular.
I thought it was silly until I got a Terrapin Station Grateful Dead record, which for some reason, when I bust that thing out from the scent to the whole experience, it just takes it to the next level. And the Dead, people are so obsessed with their live shows that they forget about their genius studio albums. Terrapin Station is a tremendous album. And I was actually in Las Vegas last week, and I saw Dead and Company doing, the catalog of the Grateful Dead. And I might have not thought John Mayer was the right person for that job as a pop rocker. Wow, man, what a pleasant surprise. He shreds, and his vocal duties were on point. And surprisingly, Bob Weir is so much stronger than the last time I saw them, which was 1995. I think his exercise routine and everything he does in present day, along with Mickey Hart too, Drums in Space, for the first time I actually watched it. Usually that's smoke break or bathroom break time from the 7 actual Grateful Dead shows I saw, but tremendous performance. Speaking of performances, you're obviously a music fan, super fan. What's your favorite live performance and who was it?
Man, I don't get out as much as I would like. Probably Wilco was great. Just saw them.
Nice.
But probably my favorite would have to be Alex G.
Okay.
Kind of newer indie musician. Saw him at Atlanta for like $25. It was at the Variety Playhouse in Little 5 Points.
That venue's
Oh,
killer.
yeah. It was very good. We got great seats, and his show, I mean, it was very, very fun. It was just the way he plays and just the stories and stuff like that were phenomenal.
So this question will be tricky for you. Favorite record?
Yeah, that's very tough.
But you can only pick one.
Yeah, it varies all the time, but like a record I probably go back to the most would be the Black Sabbath self-titled.
I bought that at your store.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, phenomenal record. It's kind of set the ground for the coming metal days and hard rock, and just kind of set that pace, and it was different than a lot of what was out at that time.
You know, the records I enjoy on vinyl, AC/DC Back in Black, you know, a lot of those songs are so played out that I found myself rediscovering all of them on vinyl, listening to the album, like I was saying, start to finish, Shoot to Thrill. I mean, there's some killer songs on there, and that's one of my go-tos.
Oh, yeah.
As long as Jeannie's not around. That's a good one to blast. So if you could time travel, where would you go?
Man, that's another, you rolling out the tough questions.
That's why we're here on the Biz and Tech podcast. Only the tough questions for you, Carter.
I would probably choose the 60s. Not as much for the rock scene, but the jazz scene. I think that's just, I mean, you just have so many musicians, and that's when they were touring. But most of the time you have to go, I would go to like Germany or anywhere in Europe to see those. They weren't touring as much in the U.S. So I think, I don't know, let's say Europe in the 60s, just to see those jazz musicians again.
Yeah. Was it Dexter Gordon?
Yes.
With his residency in Paris that lasted years and years,
Yep.
and the musicians he had playing with him. You told me about that record. How many people come in your shop and say, what do you recommend? You got a lot of clueless people like myself?
I wouldn't say clueless. When people ask what I recommend, I usually try to find something that just people haven't heard. I don't know. I think that's a huge aspect of records as well, is find something you have not heard before. Go based off of the cover, go based off of a song title, a musician that just looks neat, anything like that. And I think that's a great way to find new music. So I try to recommend that to people. And we have a staff pick section in the shop, and there's so many great albums out there, but that staff pick section, I try to just put the obscure, the random, and just so people look through and they're like, oh, I want to try that. Oh, he recommends that. And it's something that I can talk about as well and kind of guide them through that in a way.
Yeah, that's great, because your introduction to jazz, I was really stuck in my 70s and 80s hard rock zone, and I hadn't really veered out much, and that really opened my doors and eyes to a genre of music I'd never listened to. It was jazz. I mean, I'll listen to country and metal and whatever, pop rock. I love it all, jam bands, but jazz I'd never really gotten into and really discovered some great stuff, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
So, Word of South, you mentioned it a minute ago. You had a booth out there.
I did.
Word of South is, for 10 years plus, has rocked Tallahassee. Flaming Lips last year was so cool. Violent Femmes this year with the symphony, so cool. I got a chance to talk about my book project out there with Charlie Mars. What was your take on Word of South? Had you ever been out there before?
I've been there as just walking around, never set up before. So that was my first time, and I think it was phenomenal. I had a great time, met a ton of people, and that's a great way to just get new eyes on your business and kind of meet new people. So we had plenty of, oh, I've never seen your shop before. Oh, I didn't know about you guys. And yeah, we're tucked back in Midtown, but so it was a great way to just kind of expand my customer base. And also we had people, oh, I have records. I'm not doing anything with them. Are you interested in them? And kind of just getting leads that way as well.
Yeah, I think you had a story with the wind hitting you. When I was on stage with Charlie, we had standing room only, first act of the day. I was the opening act of the opening act of the opening act. I mean, I was honored to be on the roster at all, but I was nervous there wouldn't be anybody there. And then I was all of a sudden nervous because there was too many people there, standing room only. And I'm giving my opening remarks, and I'm having fun with it, and the wind blows my notes away.
Yeah,
it was super fun. So what did the wind blow away for you?
At one point I opened my cash drawer, that flew away, the bills inside.
Were they recovered?
Yes, they were very quickly. We had Ology Coffee next to us, so they helped as well.
It wasn't like a crowd member like,
yeah,
hey, free
a little
money.
bit of that, but we got it all that I know of. We had our signs blow away, shirts, pretty much you name it. Luckily, records are heavy and they're in crates, so there's not as much movement there. But pretty much everything aside from the records.
Any of the artists come by to say hello?
Yeah, we had Rough and Tumble.
Oh, that's right. You said they came by.
were. Yeah, they were very nice.
How about any George Clinton or P-Funk?
No, I wanted to see them
Because I saw most of those guys. I didn't see Mr. Clinton, but I saw the band hanging out. Okay, just curious.
I had my records tucked away just in case.
Nice.
Just get signed. We'll see.
Nice.
But yeah.
So if you could have cocktails with any musician, dead or alive, who would it be?
Jim Sullivan.
And who is that?
He put out some albums in the early 70s. He put out one record that was like, basically he was playing at a club, couldn't get signed. His wife worked for a larger record company as like a secretary, and she tried her best. They didn't buy it, and they had a club. The club that he was performing at raised funds to put out the record, and then after that he was out on Playboy Records, and those are the only two records that he put out. And basically, he wasn't making any money, and his wife was like, gave him an ultimatum. It's either we get divorced, or you move to Nashville, see if you can make money, and the family will move with you. And he disappeared in New Mexico. On the way to Nashville, just gone. They found his car,
Without
his
the
records. Wife? Yep, without the wife. He just disappeared. They found his records, his guitar, and his car. Never him, and no one knows what happened.
Aliens, man.
Yeah, that's the story. So he has a record that actually there's a reissue of his record, and it's called UFO, because that's one of these stories for it, is that he was abducted by aliens.
New Mexico, Roswell.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would like to speak with him just to know what happened.
That's good. Get a little closure there.
Yes.
Gosh, that's a lot. Are you a reader?
Here and there. A lot of nonfiction, a lot of music-based books, things like that.
Give us a good example.
I'm trying to even think what I've read recently. I'll read books by musicians. So
Lemmy, lead singer of Motorhead,
Okay.
he wrote a tell-all that's freaking hilarious.
Okay.
It's the most unserious take, and he just breezes through things. Oh, the 80s. Pfft. He's like, I wrote a few songs for Ozzy Osbourne, and I made more freaking money off that than the whole career with Motorhead. I mean, like, literally, that's it. That's the 80s.
And I'll read more so, not as much like memoir type stuff, but like there's a musician named Richard Farina, died very early in a motorcycle accident. Mm-hmm. And he was married to Mimi, Joan Baez's wife, Joan Baez's sister. And he put out a book called "Been Down So Long It Looks Up," and it's just weird experimental writing about a guy in college who just kind of drifts around, very 60s. Just weird writing. So
Excellent.
Just things like that. Yeah. And they have interesting music, early like folk music from like the 60s, and just his story as well just kind of brought me to the book, and things like that. Just kind of just randomness is essentially what I read.
Yeah, if you've never read Midnight Riders, the Allman Brothers story, that's a great one.
Okay, yeah.
And I watched the Bob Dylan movie on the way back from Vegas. That is extraordinary.
Oh yeah, I found it to be very good. I saw it in theaters week it came out. Timothy Chalamet's performance, I think, was really, really good. And
you saw a lot of Dylan?
Yeah, oh yeah. Especially after that movie, we had a lot of like the younger crowd, like high school students coming in. Oh yeah, because Timothy Chalamet is so popular. Like, oh, I'm looking for Bob Dylan now. So we had that, especially right after the movie came out. It's fizzled out a little bit, but right after it came out, definitely. Yeah, it was a great movie, I thought. And we had people from that grew up in Greenwich Village, like, oh no, in the 60s, that's exactly how it was. They captured it phenomenally.
Yeah, how they do that from the storefront to the automobiles.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome. Well, that's about it for today, Carter. It was awesome talking records with you. How can people get in touch with you? You on socials? What's your address? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, we're located at 1748 Thomasville Road, near Joann's Plaza. We're in Duval Plaza, right next door.
Okay.
Well, the soon-to-be absence of Joann's Plaza, but
right.
And we're on Instagram at Rearview Vintage and Vinyl. We're also on Facebook, Rearview Vintage and Vinyl, and those are the best ways to find us. And we're always buying, selling records. So yeah.
on a Sunday afternoon. If I leave the house, I can be found at your location. So
Yes.
thanks for being an
Yeah,
awesome
thank you.
local, not just business, but local resource and music connoisseur. You the man.
Thank
Go
you.
check out Carter at Rearview Vintage and Vinyl. And I am Blake Dowling, CEO of Aegis BizTech, reminding you to be cyber safe, keep the records rocking. Thank you, Josh, our longtime producer with Level Up Digital Media. And thank you, CB, for joining us today with Charlie Bravo Pictures. We are live at Charlie Bravo and Aegis HQ in Midtown. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap. We'll see you next time on the Biz and Tech Podcast. Adios.